Hey gamers, today we're going to look at Tabannusi. Let's check it out. A lot of setup for this game, but first off, you're going to take one of your little tokens here, put it on the 10-point track. Everyone starts with 10 points. You're going to have a little bell ringer and a little architect, I think, and you get to place them anywhere on any action you want to do at the very beginning of the game. You're going to shuffle these little building tiles here and deal out 3 in these little pre-printed areas. You're going to roll all the dice and then assign them to their colored boat. The game also comes with other modular boats that you can move, so you could place a yellow over here and make that color yellow as well. But anyway, you're going to shuffle through all these ship tiles here, and then put some out over here, not covering these 2 spaces. Then you're also going to put little gold bars over each one of these little areas up at the top. You're going to put your blank water and blank gardens here, and then your question mark water and the pre-printed areas on the board. You'll also have a spot for the Harbor Master bonuses. There's several in the game. You'll just put some out there and then put away the rest. Same thing with these cubes here, these little cargo cubes. You'll put them out in the pre-printed order there. You will also start with one random one on your own player board. You're going to put out these little plot tiles here for white, yellow, and brown buildings. And then, starting with the last player and moving back up to first, you're going to assign one of these houses to your own and place it on the board, whether it be yellow, white, or brown. And then you're going to get that reward, whatever it is. So that would be a gold, so I would get a gold. And if I put it on top of, let's say this emblem here, I would get 3 victory points as well. And of course, all players would do that. So the next player, maybe purple, wants to do something, and they put something over here, and they get whatever reward is that they want there. Now, everyone's going to be, they're going to shuffle these cards, deal 2 out to each player. These are kind of in-game goals. You want to get that many houses in these districts. So I want 3 here, 2 there. So I'm going to need 5 in that middle section, then 2 over there. If you complete 1, obviously it's worth 10. Both would be worth 20. You'd get that at the end of the game. You give someone the worthless first player marker, and then you begin. Whoops, forgot one thing. Make sure that you have markers on each one of these little building tracks here, and also that you shuffle these cards here, deal out 2 with the number 2 on them, and then 2 with the number 3 on them, and put them here. These are goals that you can achieve in the game for rewards and bonus points. And when you achieve one, you'll just mark it with your cube. One other thing you'll be doing is you'll be shuffling these little tiles and placing 1 out on each section, 2 over here. That makes for some variety in the game, where the games will always be different. And then you're ready to play. Starting with the first player, what they're going to do is start, like I said, in any area here. And the first thing you're going to do is take one of these die. Now, any die that they take, they're going to go to that corresponding area. So for instance, if I took the 4, I'd place it in my player area here, and then my little bell ringer would go to 4, section 4 right there. And that's where I'm going to have to move at the end of my turn. But for right now, I can do, and it says here on the board with all the spaces here, any 2 actions, any of these 2 actions. Now, one of the actions in every area, 2 in that area, are special rewards. So this one, I could take this action, I could take it twice if I wanted to. That's 4, that'd be 2 victory points and 2 extra little markers. You're going to need these in the game. Zooming in for a closer look, I'm going to talk about the other 3 actions you can take, and these are across the board in these 3 neighborhoods here. But the first one is take out and reserve a plot of land. What you're going to do is you're going to, using these little 3 areas here, you're going to pick the building that you want to do. So let's say it's a yellow building. You're going to put it anywhere over in this section and claim the reward. Of course, there are some spaces marked for 4 players. If you're playing with 3 or less, you wouldn't put one there. But in a 4-player game, every place is open. And when you do this, you're going to cover it up and get the bonus. But there are some placement rules here. Let's say I was placing a brown. What I couldn't do is I couldn't place it next to an already brown building. I'd have to place it away from that building, either catty corner, but I couldn't make it perpendicular to any existing house. On the flip side of that, let's say there was already a yellow plot and I wanted to choose another one. All right, well, if I'm choosing another yellow, it must go next to this yellow plot here. So I could put it there, there, or there. And then, of course, you'd place your marker on it. Only the markers that you have here, not markers that are in your supply outside of the game. They don't really have a spot where you put this on your little player board, but you just keep them next to you, and then the other markers just put in a common area. Anyway, that's one of the actions you can do. Another action you can do is build. Now here's the crazy thing about it. Building costs 2 colors of the same cube, and each area is different. They'll tell you, the iconography will tell you which 2 colors. So in this case, I would have to pay 2 yellow and any extra cubes for any of my own little plots. So in this case, I'd pay 2 yellow, 4 yellow. Now, not because these are yellow buildings, these could be white buildings, and I still have to pay yellow though. I have to pay those type cubes. So I pay those type cubes on the game, and that's 4 yellows. What if I don't have 4 yellows? Well, a few things I could do to substitute. Gold is always a substitution for that. I do have a die here. It doesn't matter what the pips are, but this is also 1 yellow resource. So this can count as a cube. And if one of my cargo things if that was yellow, I could flip it over on my player board and utilize it as another yellow. And in that case, what I do is, if I'm paying for my own land, these would go away back into my supply, not into my hand, and then I'd replace these 2 with some more gold, or yellow I should say, and these kind of snap together buildings. Now, how many buildings am I going to put down? 1, but it's a value of 2. So then looking at my player board, I have all these marked out here, and I'll remove one from yellow, gain that reward, which is a gold, and place it either here or here. It doesn't really matter. Now, no one may place a building there. This means it's a level 2 building. You can have a level 3 building if you want to. Speaking of your own player board here, after you clear out this 3rd row, you get to place an order on a ship, which I'll talk about later. And when you clean out this 4th row, if you can, you'll get 10 victory points. If, let's say, I had to get a white building, but I didn't have any more left, I would grab from this little extra supply, surplus supply, at the bottom of my own player board. And I neglected to mention that when you are scoring the actual player board here, when you're scoring these little city sections, anytime, let's say, the yellow die were to run out, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be getting victory points according to the size and where you are on these tracks. So, for example, let's say the yellow section were to sell out. Purple has a level 3 white building, so they would get 3 times, let's say they're here over white, 2. So that would get 6 points. They would go up 6 points on the score track. Orange, for brown, it looks like they get 2 victory points. And for yellow, they would get 1 victory point per level. So this is 2. They get another 2 victory points. They get 4 total. If I'd have had a white building, I'd have gotten 3 victory points per level of house I had. And that's kind of how you're scoring each one of these sections. Now let me switch the situation around and say that it was purple who planned these and I wanted to build. Well, in this case, I would only have to pay 2 yellow. I wouldn't have to pay the extra ones because my marker is not on here. It's yellow's marker. So in that case, I would pay the 2 gold or pay the 2 yellow die. If I had 2 yellow die or a yellow die and a yellow cargo or, an extra gold, I could pay that. And I only had to pay those 2 yellow. Take these off. These go back to that purple player, and purple player would move 1 up on the track, the corresponding track. So let's say they had yellow here. I took one of their buildings, even though it was level 2, they would move up 1. So whenever someone else takes away your plots of land, you're going to move these little things up. And once all 3 have reached the bottom row, you're going to get an extra marker. Or when all 3 have reached the second one, you're going to get a gold bar. So you're just going to follow those rewards there on the player board. This right here I'll explain later, but of course, obviously, when you hit each one of these, you'll get a marker. Each one of these, you'll get a resource of your choice. And then up here, if you get that high, you can get 3 victory points as well, even though I haven't seen anyone get that high before. Anyway, so that's what would happen. Purple would have gone up 1 in the yellow track because I grabbed their yellow plot of land. And then, of course, I am going to put my 2 yellow buildings there. Now, I don't get those rewards again. Only the person who plotted that plot of land. And you can't just build wherever. You must first plot out the land. You or another player. And, of course, it's better to get it from that other player because you have to pay less resources. Now, another thing it talks about is laying down water tiles and garden tiles. What it says here is, hey, you can spend as many blue cubes as you want to grab these generic water tiles. And then as many green cubes as you want to grab these generic garden tiles. What do these do? Well, let me show you. First off, water tiles let you flood certain areas. So let's say you have to put it next to another water basin. So let's say purple had done that, and then they did that to flood it, and then they had 2 garden tiles that they could put over it. So they're going to put 1 garden tile here and 1 garden tile there. And when they do that, they're also going to place their little player markers on there. And if I hadn't built this house in time, and then let's say later on, again, let's say that purple owned both of these. If I bought it out from purple, purple would of course go up on the yellow track, and the moment I built, purple is also going to be getting victory points for every building that touches their gardens. So in this case, they would get 2 victory points as well. And if someone, even if purple, built here later on, couldn't be a brown building, but it could be a white or yellow, then the purple would get another victory point. Now, if purple had just taken one of their garden tokens and covered one of these little icon areas here, they would get that reward, which in this case would be an additional marker. But of course, they'd have to put a marker down there on the garden to show that they own it. Now, these garden markers never come back up. The little markers that are on these little plots, on these little plots here, those will come back up and go back to that player. However, if it's your own plot land, it does not go back to you, it goes back into the supply. Kind of confusing, but that's what these 2 icons mean. It says, hey, if you're spending someone else, you're using someone else's plots, they will go up on whatever track of that color building was. And then don't forget to give anyone bonus points if they have garden tiles there. So that's what that means. And of course, then this is just plotting the land there. And you don't get any rewards for, let's say later on I was going to flood, I had one here and I wanted to flood this one, I would not get that bonus. However, in the game, there are these little question mark tiles. And there are times where you'll be told that you can grab one. What you'll do is you'll just grab one from here and then flip over a new one. Now you'll keep this in your hand until you do another flooding action. And when you do, you still don't get the reward on the board. So for instance, if I put one here, I would not get that reward. But the moment I place another garden over it, I would get that reward as well. So that's what waters and gardens do for you. Now, one other thing that's easy to forget in this game, yet it's printed right here on the table, is if you build a level 1, 2, or 3 house, you will, and you paid a gold, you may also put your marker on any one of these level 1, 2, or 3 ships. Let me go to the harbor real quick and show you what that means. Here is the harbor here, and as you see, some of these are level 1s, 2s, and 3s. And what you'll do, according to, I built a level 2 there, so I could place it on any of the level 2s or the level 1s. And these give you random rewards or cheats or bonuses in the game. You can come to the harbor and claim one automatically as well, and I'll talk more about that. But whenever you build a home, it's optional if you want to pay a gold and go ahead and claim a ship token as well. Now, after a player has taken their 2 actions, what they'll do is they'll join their other person over here, and it'll be the next player's turn. I should also mention that when gathering die, let's say I wanted to go to 2. Well, there is no level 2 here, okay? What I could do is I could pick the 6. The 6 is wild. That means I could go anywhere. But then when it comes over into my station here, it only counts as a yellow resource. The pip value doesn't matter. Another way to get to going wherever you want, let's say the 6s are gone and there still's no 2. Well, I just takes me a die here, and then I can pay a gold and I can send my little bell ringer anywhere I want. But this is 2, so if I picked a 2, would I stay here? Absolutely. You'd stay there for the second round and get to do multiple actions, which is probably what I want to do since I want to build a lot of houses in that area. So that's basically the same when you're building in any one of these areas. Let me now show you the harbor action. Now, of course, how this would happen is, once again, I'd pick any die here, put it with my group, send him to whatever level that is. Well, that was a 4, so he'd stay right here in that case since I got a 4. And then again, I can take any 2 of these actions. This is the random one that's kind of self-explanatory, yet these say, hey, pay 2 gold to place a token on the ship. Now remember, when you build a building, you don't have to pay 1. So you got a discount. But if you're going straight to the harbor, you would just pay 2 gold if you had it, and then place another marker down on any ship. And of course, you're going to be getting rewards, and all this is explained in the rule book, what the rewards are. You can also pay 2 blue cubes. Again, it could be dice as a resource, or if you have this blue cargo, you could just flip it over. And if that was the case, then you could place one of your houses on the edges here. Now, if you look at this, this is all your houses. For blue, you would choose one from the bottom row. Now, you have a choice. You can place it over to the side here and get the reward, or you could place it over the little cube and add this to your little cargo board here, where you can hold up to 4 different cargo. Ideally, you may want one of each color, but maybe they won't be available, so you'll just get whatever you can. And either or is fine, but once you do that, you may not place a second house there. You may place houses anywhere else, but only one house on each one of these spaces at the most. In the green section, once again, you would first take one of these die to show where your bell ringer is going to go next. And then from there, you could take any one of these actions up to 2 times here, or two of these actions. Of course, this is the one with the most tiles here. It has 2 different tiles here. This will flip back over those cargo that you've already used. So if you used a few of your cubes there, you could take that action to flip these 2 over and make these 2 temporary ones available once again on your player board. That one just gives you a gold and a marker. This one, if you pay 2 green resources, remember gold can replace resources, and this, once you take it, is a resource, and you can place a house in any one of these 3 districts, the white, brown, or yellow. And of course, you would take it from the corresponding house on your player board here. And then, if you wanted to, you could go up in that certain track on the board or gain a gold. Once you do that, you're going to take one of your markers that you have on you. Again, you never take markers from the supply unless you gain them through some of these actions here. But you'll take one of your markers and place it on anywhere you want. So let's say I want to take the brown action. Well, here, I'd go up on the brown track 1 there, and then I would place my little token right there. Now that doesn't block anyone else from going there. For instance, if purple came later and they wanted to take the same action, all they'd have to do is they would, and let's say they wanted that gold, they put one there, and then they'd put one on top of there. And you go from left to right. And what this does is it's going to give you some victory points whenever this little section scores. Now, how do these sections score? They all score the same. What happens is when someone takes the last die in the area, that's when that section will score. The first thing they're going to do before scoring it is they're going to take one of the gold from the track and keep it, because it's the first time we're scoring it. Then they're going to score that section there. Now, for anyone who has leftover green die, let's say the purple has 2 leftover green die, what will they get? They will get 1 and only 1 garden tile. It doesn't matter if they have 2 or 3 die, they have to turn all the die back in, every player does, and anyone who has green die will just receive a garden tile. If you scored over in any of these spots here, you know, the brown, yellow, or white district, then anyone who has dice of that color, doesn't matter if they have 1 or more, they're just moving up 1 on whatever track it is. And again, that's if all the dice disappear and the place is about to score. But how you score these, first one here is what you will do here is you'll look and see what the victory conditions are and how many victory points you get. And they're all explained in the book, but let's say if I had 2 tokens here, I would get 1 times 5 victory points. If I had 3 tokens here, I get 2 times 5, which is 10 victory points. This one scores on, hey, how many houses do you have around the harbor, on the outside edges of the harbor? Because you'll multiply that times 2, 3, or 4 victory points, depending on how far along you get. So in this example, purple would score 2 for each house they have around the harbor, and I would score 3 points per house I had around the harbor. So that's basically what it says. And again, these are always different. These tiles are always different, but you can look at the game to see what the victory points would be when this area scores. After that, you re-roll these die and keep them right up there. Now keep in mind that you may not have a score for a very long time, but after a while, a lot of these dice are going to be disappearing. So after we did 1 score, as you see, ooh, blue, white, even yellow may be scoring next. So you could have this track go forever without 1 gold being taken from it. Then all of a sudden, 2 more tracks score in the next few rounds there, and suddenly you're almost at the end of the game, because the game will end when someone takes that last gold and scores that final section. Now, how it works here is, oh, and I should mention on the blue section, when that's taken away, what do you get as a reward? You get just a water tile. For anyone who had blue would get a water tile. And then, of course, you would score this. How does this section score? Let's say that I had something that looked like this. If I have a completed row, I should mention, in the harbor here, a completed row, the first one to do it would grab whatever that harbor master bonus is. This one's I can place a token on a ship. That's great. Or maybe just cash in for 3 points. All of them are like that. but they have each one kind of has special abilities. You can cash in whenever you want. You can read the rule book on what each one does. There are several more in the bag that you can put in the game. When you have 3 like that, that's a row that will score. You'll also score a victory point for any row that has a house on it. So for instance, let's say it looked like this a little bit. This one would score 1, 2, and then it would score this way 3. So I'd also get 3 victory points. Ooh, if I'd have had it here, I would have gotten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 victory points. That's basically how you score the harbor when it empties. Now, when the last gold gets taken from this track, that's when final scoring will happen. What you're going to do is you're going to score every section. Every section scores once again. After that, you're going to add up all your victory points and then reveal your cards. If you got one or both of these, you're going to add those victory points up, and whoever has the most victory points wins. One more thing I forgot to mention is on your regular player board, you can pay any resource back to the supply to flip over one of your cargo, even though that doesn't match the cargo if you wanted to. That's another way to refresh your cargo in the game. Final thoughts. What do I think about the game? Well, one thing I forgot to mention, on the board there's an option if you place a building tile or a reservation tile over it, where you can take a die from a boat, and the rules state you take the die with the highest pip. Even though it means nothing, it's just a resource for you, but that's the die you would take. All right, so what do I think about this game? A few months ago, BGG had it on clearance for half off. It was 25 bucks, usually goes for 50. It got me interested in looking into it. Then suddenly everyone slashed it down for clearance. I was thinking, oh, it must not be that good of a game. But as I kept looking at it, it's like, it attracts me. I think I like this game. So I bought it for 20 bucks thinking, well, if I don't like it, you know, I'm just out 20 bucks. And we played it a couple of times. Me and my nephews did. And whoa. This, as of this video, this is the best game I've played in 2023. And this is kind of weird because everyone else who reviews this goes, this is like part of a T series of games and they love all these other ones. So I looked at the other ones, they look awful. They look awful. This one to me is just awesome. It's so interesting. There's so many choices on where to go. I like you're drafting the die and going to that area. After that, it's just a resource. It's just a resource. You're relying on other players to, you're trying to make your plots attractive so you can go up the point tracker. At the same time, you're trying to build buildings from other people so you can score those victory points either during the game or at the end. Some sections will score maybe once or twice, and they'll all score again at the end. But the game, that's another thing. The first time we had a score, we were like an hour in, I guess, until we finally got a score. And then suddenly we got 2 more scores because the dice are disappearing. So the game really starts picking up. And then I made a move where I laid 2 reservation tiles over areas where you could grab a die from another boat, and those just happen to be places where there's 1 die each. So when everyone thought, oh, we got one more turn or one more round, I went ahead and ended the game immediately before anyone else could score. It was so sweet. Getting those little bonus goals at the end of the game, so far for me, that's been really hard. No one has scored them. People have come close, but we just haven't. And I love them because, I mean, 10, 20 points, yeah, that can win you the game or catch you up if you're behind. But at the same time, my nephews couldn't help but focus on getting that 10, 20 points. And they'd obsess over that. And they kept trying to go back to the same place and trying to build and trying to, build on their own. But every time you build on your own thematically, I don't know how that works, why you'd be paying more resources, but when they did that, it would bankrupt them. And then they have to go around a few more turns trying to gather resources just so they could build on their own. They didn't want to share. And that's the whole thing. It's give and take. You've got to leave some plots of land for other people. You've also got to take the advantage of other people. But because, oh no, but my thing says I need 3 in this area and I only have 1. I want to get 2 more. Forget it. I don't even look at those cards. I've come close to scoring them, but at the time, they're not number 1 because you're not always you shouldn't focus on those 2 cards. But the game makes you do that. The game has you going everywhere, thinking everywhere. Where's the best place to get points? Is it on the little, I think it's called Zygote track, the green? Is it in the harbor section? Because I'm getting lots of bonuses if I do X amount. One of the big things we always forgot to do is whenever you build a building, you have the option of buying a ship, for 1 gold cheap. And just because you have the ship doesn't mean other players can't have that ship too. Other players can play on that too. It's not blocking anyone out. But, wow, wonderful game. Still cheap today. Still cheap if you want a copy used on Board Game Geek. And highly, recommended. Awesome game. All right, gamers, that's it for now. Until next time, game on!